And I was always the one, and it's still the case today, I'm always the one that's like a little behind on what's trending, and I like to act more ignorant than I am, kind of like that dad that doesn't know anything. Youth group comes up to me and says things like, oh, you know, like, what's your favorite meme and stuff like that. I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard about those Mays. Nope. I know you can always cut it out. I was thinking about saying something like really silly and out there, but I won't. Growing up, we had these pretty gigantic wasps, hornet things in our backyard. Why did you have to ask that? I'd be fine with behind the camera, which is why I say it's a shame. You gotta share in the awkwardness of being in front of a camera. So if I just took the camera right now and turned it, you would just edit it out. What a shame. You can edit it out later. And I like to act more ignorant than I am, kind of like that dad that doesn't know anything. When the youth group comes up to me and says things like, oh, you know, like, what's your favorite meme and stuff like that, I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard about those Mays. And, you know, it's just like the cheesiest, horrible humor ever, but the high schoolers and middle schoolers at my youth group come to love it, so, yeah. Hey, I'm Joseph Gonzalez. I'm 25 years old, and I'm a Teach for Christ missionary. So this year I'm serving at St. Jerome's. That's a K through 8 school, and I am a 4th grade teacher there. Definitely not what the degree was in, but it's been a great experience so far. So I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I studied at Millersville University. I was pursuing my bachelor's in computer-aided drafting and design originally, so kind of mechanical engineering. And then after 2 years of that, I felt a call to the priesthood and ended up going to Mount St. Mary's Seminary in Maryland. Studied there for 1.5 years as a pre-theologian, pursuing a degree in philosophy. Realized God wasn't calling me there, so I ended up leaving the seminary and then going back to Millersville where I started. After a couple years there, a couple more years, I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in technology education, and I'm also pursuing my master's in theology through the Theology of the Body Institute. I first heard of Teach for Christ through a mutual friend that friend knew somebody that worked here, and after hearing about Teach for Christ and knowing that I wanted to go for my education degree, I figured I'd look into it. Went onto the website, saw that Teach for Christ gives missionaries opportunities to help others out and give us some help along the way too, as we get some education experience as an educator. So went online, reached out, and went through the interview process and ended up here only a couple months later. So I'm living with 2 other guys, Stephen and Liam. Yeah, so it's been cool to find the different things that we have in common. It's just nice to live with other Catholic guys and other people that are also working in a Catholic school, so you can come home from school and start to talk about oh man, this is while still keeping things confidential and whatnot, just this is something I'm really struggling with at school right now. How do you deal with a student when they do this, or if a parent asks you about this and you can't tell them everything, and you have other people that you can just bounce stuff off of, people to pray with. It's been really great. When my roommates first arrived and they were like, yeah, so we've been praying morning prayer at 5:30 in the morning. My first thought was 5:30? Mornings are just not my thing. If I can avoid it, I will. If I have to do it, I'll make it work. And I was thinking, wow, how am I gonna make this work though? 5:30. Made it work. Been here for a couple months now, and yeah, it's really great actually to be able to start the day off with prayer and then to end every day with night prayer with the guys. That's been really great. Yeah, teaching is something that you heard my college background, my back and forth through different majors I've studied, but in reality, teaching was always in the background. From a very early age, I have this picture of me. I was probably only 7 years old and just pretending to be a teacher, and yeah, that's always been the goal, is to be a teacher. And even as I got older, and I started finding out more about engineering, I was like, oh, maybe I can teach while doing some engineering. And then when I was studying in seminary to be a priest, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll be teaching as a priest. So teaching was always there. It's something that came very naturally to me. I was doing it from a very young age, and others saw it in me too. As early as like 5th grade, having people start picking me out from the rest of my classmates to say, hey, can you help these other students do this or this? And that just continued in middle school, and by high school, whether I was being picked or I was volunteering to help others, there was just a lot of teaching opportunities going on in all sorts of ways. There are a couple of goals here. One of the goals was feeling called to be here in the first place, and I'm like, okay, God, you're calling me here for some reason, and then understanding that the point of Teach for Christ is to serve schools, to serve students, to serve families that are in need. That was one of my primary goals, and that hasn't changed. It still is one of my primary goals. The one student asked something as we were going in a history class, or as we call it, humanities. We were asking about biblical slavery and talking about the ancient Egyptians. And they said, oh, a slave is just someone who works without getting paid. I said, oh, so does that make me a slave then? And they're like, no, you're not a slave. Well, I don't get paid. What? You don't get paid? And I was like, well, the mission center helps me out with different things for sure, but I don't get paid the same way the other teachers get paid here. And they were just like mind blown by that. And they're like, well, why do you come and do it? The one girl never even believed me. That she's like, you do get paid. You're crazy. You get paid. I was like, I'm telling you, I don't. And they said, well, why do you do this? And I said, I'm here for you guys. Like, I'm here to serve you. So many of the students were really touched by that. Even though they're only in 4th grade, they realized like what that meant. And then some still didn't buy it. Other benefits that I saw to coming here as I was discerning whether to be a missionary or not was it would give me experience in a Catholic school, and I have some of that experience now, and I love it, and I'm already talking to Catholic schools back home, and they're interested in having me work there. Getting that experience in a Catholic school has been really great. Getting an idea of working with different age groups other than what I was used to just have that experience and know for sure whether I'm called that way or not. And then, yeah, the one that we already mentioned before, the community life, was something that I've experienced before in seminary and in various other settings, and it's been really fruitful to have that as well. This girl in my class, I was grading different math papers. I flipped the one math paper over and see on the back, this girl decided to only draw, the whole back was blank and just one face in the center, and it's a face of a girl crying, and that drawing seemed to really resemble the student who handed that paper in. You know, my mind went to all different things of why that girl chose to draw that. And I've heard that this girl is very introverted, doesn't like to talk a lot, and has been that way for several years. And I'm like, okay, how do I reach out to this student? So I decided to modify the drawing, and I turned what was just the face of a girl crying into, I didn't change the face at all, but I drew the rest of the body, and after you see the rest of the body, then you see that this girl is hugging a little kid and comforting a little kid, a little son in the background and all that, and I wrote, Jesus loves you just like a parent loves their child, and handed that picture back to that student and made sure to personally hand it to her and let her see it. And she just kind of like, and got all excited to see the drawing. So that was probably my touching moment that comes to mind when it comes to my teaching experiences here. Why would somebody that is considering teaching, even a little bit of a inkling of, oh, maybe teaching is for me, why Teach for Christ would be good? So Teach for Christ assigns you to all different roles. Some of my fellow missionaries are full-time teachers in the classroom, like myself. Some are maybe more of a teacher's aide. If a teacher gets sick, maybe they become a substitute teacher then. There's all different roles that you play as a Teach for Christ missionary. And one thing you get is if you're the full-time teacher, you get to see what it's like to really be a teacher, and you're not really signing a dotted line, like you're not on a long-term contract with a school or something. You're here as a missionary. You get that experience in the school in the first place as a teacher, or if you're not the full-time teacher, you still get a lot of unique opportunities because you get to jump from one classroom to the next to help different classrooms out and see how different teachers teach, and you get to be not quite the student or the teacher. You get to have that have a third perspective on everything. And I've been hearing it from a lot of my fellow missionaries, all their unique experiences and perspectives on how different things work in the school, and they're experiences that many people probably wouldn't get if otherwise. One thing that I want to give to my students, really communicate to them, and I've said this to them too, I want them to be able to see Jesus in me, and I want to be able to open myself up to be able to see Jesus in each one of them. Knowing that plenty of my students aren't Catholic doesn't make a difference. Jesus is going to be in each and every person, and I want to be able to see Jesus in them. I want them to see Jesus in me. I want them to see Jesus in each other and see Jesus in the complete strangers that they meet throughout life too. That's what I want to encounter. That's what I want to communicate to my students, is finding Jesus in all of creation, including the people that they meet and in themselves.